Welcome everybody. Welcome to a class, and thank you for the new guests coming on. I'm very grateful for that.
Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good, it's Caroline.
Hello, Caroline. Thank you for joining us. So we're live on Facebook as well, Caroline. So yeah, great to have you on board. Thank you very much. So, okay, so welcome to another masterclass and some further, I hope, understanding or help around the condition of codependency, which I believe can be fatal. So, yes, so without further ado, also I'm coming to you from Brisbane. Caroline, are you from the Gold Coast?
I am.
Great, yes. Yeah. So you'll be having a beautiful, sunny, warm day as well today.
It's gorgeous, yes,
Isn't
absolutely.
it lovely? The spring and
Yay.
summer. I love it too.
Yeah, me too. So many people like the cooler weather, but I don't.
No, me too. I love it. I feel more alive, and that's why one of the reasons not really the main reason, but a reason I chose Brisbane from New Zealand was the warmer weather.
Absolutely.
So without Sorry.
I was going to say, also you get the longer days, which is, you lose 4 hours a day, basically, in winter.
Yeah. Absolutely, yes. I don't function that well in the cold, so
no.
I don't think I ever. Well, I'd like to think I'm never ungrateful. I appreciate the weather all the time, and just to look out and see the beautiful. It kind of lifts the lid, the roof, the beautiful blue roof in our sky, Carolyn, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, whereabouts at the Gold Coast are you from, Caroline?
In Madraba.
Oh, great! I love that there.
Yeah.
Okay. What a great area. So, all right, without further ado, what I'll do is I'm just going to share my screen now. And I'm just going to. So, Carolyn, please feel free if you'd like to intercept and raise a question or something. I'm not very good at reading things if they text in questions, because I'm not very good at managing this and that, if you know what I mean. So, so please feel, or if something, please feel free to, we may not have many people on live, but it seems to be, the masterclass seems to be getting a lot of views, well over 100 each week. So I'm really grateful for that. So while there's just maybe the two of us or a few, please feel free. I'd love if you have any questions or would like something explained, or for my opinion of it, or something stands out for you, I'd be really grateful.
Yep.
So thanks, Caroline. Thank you. So Codependency 101, Finding Raw Courage for Recovery from Codependence. So what gives me the authority to take this masterclass? And I guess you'll hear that with my story, and the codependency took me to my deathbed. So my passion to get this awareness out there is because I couldn't seem to get the right help that I was looking for. And this is 33 years ago, I started going to a 12-step group called Al-Anon. And you'll see why as I go through my story. I'll try not to repeat things. And I was going around lots and lots of places, like counsellors, psychologists, psychiatrists, like a chook with my head cut off, trying to get answers. But because codependency, you can't see it. It's not like a needle or a bottle, which I used neither of those, or I didn't use prescription medication either. It's very, very cunning, and it's kind of invisible, and it's more of a lifestyle thing. So that's why it's hard for people to pinpoint. I connected with a fellow in about 3 or 4 years ago in America. I saw him come on Facebook, and I listened to his YouTube about codependency, and I thought, oh wow, finally someone that gets it, and it's a guy as well. I was delighted with that. So I connected with this guy David, and anyway, we had a Skype session and a chat, and he said there's very few people in the world, Roslyn, that understand actually codependency. So of course, that's why I was delighted to, when I listened to what he was saying, I was going, you get it, you get it. And that's exactly the message I put to him. You get this stuff. So, so I'll carry on now. So I was born into in New Zealand, a small town of about 10,000. It's Fielding, if anybody's on here or from New Zealand. So about 10,000, and both my parents were addicts. What I mean by that is my father was dead at 47 with alcoholism. My mother was, she had a stroke at 55. They both smoked between 60 to 80 cigarettes each a day. And also, what I want to point out here is when you have an addict in the family, like my father was an alcoholic, and this is like 35, 40 years ago, my mother didn't know, and it was hard for me to get help, let alone her at that time. I do remember my mother going to our family doctor and saying she was worried about my father Bill's drinking, and he said, oh, you know, Pearl, just sit down and have a gin with him at night. That was his answer. So she couldn't get the help either. So what happened to her was she became addicted to Valium's prescription medication because she couldn't manage living with an addict. And with the smoking, and at her at 55, at a very young age, she had a stroke, and she was institutionalized then until she actually passed at 60. So both my parents died of their addictions, and the reason I now know is they couldn't manage their unresolved issues underneath. So they were using the reason we all use addictions, and we can all use it, is we cannot manage our emotions. That's the number one reason anybody goes to addictions, and we're looking for relief. However, we're often looking for relief in the wrong places, and then we become addicted to it. So I then went on and married. Now, you wouldn't think anybody in their right mind would go and marry 4 years later, or I met a guy about 3 years later than my father dying from alcoholism, and I'd grown up with all the alcoholism and the arguments and the frequency in the home that was emotionally programming me. And so, of course, I met a guy at 18, and surprise, surprise, he was an alcoholic. So, which is very, very common. I didn't know anything else. I knew that what the alcohol had done to our family, but I didn't have enough awareness or knowledge at that stage that I needed to perhaps clean up my addiction to codependency before getting married. So I went on and got married at 20 to an alcoholic. We then went on and had 4 beautiful children. But what I was doing, what I want to point out here, what I was doing was, all I did was I left my family home to get married. And what I was doing was taking the toxic soup that I'd grown up in and it's called a blueprint, recreating it in a marital home. My husband's mother was an alcoholic as well, so he'd come from alcoholism. So emotionally, we were a perfect fit. But of course, we know what goes on. So I transferred the same set of things into my marital home. And so the same dynamics were going on with regard to the alcoholism in our home and my codependency to go with it. So so my children then grew up in a toxic soup of addiction, the frequency of addiction in the home. And what happened, I also I was always wanting my husband to stop drinking, and of course he didn't want to. And we then decided, when our children were just small, not much older than what they were in this photo, we decided to shift to Brisbane. We thought we'd come over here and we'll get our family together. I was making noises about leaving my husband as well. I was looking to shift to Auckland. Anyway, we decided to come over to Brisbane, and my husband said, that's what I want my family. And myself, in my blindness and my denial, I thought if we shifted over to Brisbane, then my husband said all he wants is his family, and etc., etc. But of course, what we did was, as we came on the plane with 4 small children, we had our emotional baggage. We paid for it as luggage coming with us. So we get over here and the same things. I thought that when we left our town, my husband wouldn't like have the boys at the pub or the rugby club, all of that thing, all of those things that came before us as a family, and caused a lot of arguments. It wasn't a good marriage right from the start. And actually, even before I got married, there was arguments over the drinking. But as I said, at that stage, I didn't know. And probably I thought in my denial and in my codependency to control, I probably thought that I would be able to make my husband give up drinking. So we come to Brisbane, and of course 2 or 3 weeks later my husband finds a rugby club down the road. There's a pub down, of course they're everywhere down there, and the same things just carried on. This is when I, after a few months of being here, not very long, about 3 months, I started going to Al-Anon, which was for families of alcoholics, and that's over 33 years ago now. I'm very, very grateful for going there. It saved my life, and I have a high respect for the 12-step program. I think if diligently applied and you do the work with someone, it's a genius program. So I carried on doing that, and over the next 10 years, I would leave my husband, or he would leave the family home. We had a beautiful home on the Brisbane River, and I had a business. I had I'm a hairdresser by trade, so I had a few large hairdressing salons with staff, etc. I also was a work addict. I was actually an everything addict except for substances. I was again looking and running and looking for relief in different ways to do it. So over the next 10 years, what happened was I would leave my husband and go back to him 5 different times over 10 years. And I didn't just leave for a weekend, or he didn't leave for a weekend. We would get a unit, like it would be a proper separation. And then my husband was my drug. I was a codependent, but also a relationship addict. So as I said, I didn't use substances. However, I didn't need them. My husband was my drug. I would leave him, or we would separate. Then the pain of withdrawal, no different from a heroin addict or an ice addict, any of those addictions, the pain of withdrawal would come in, and we'd get back together again without doing the necessary work or becoming sober, emotionally sober. So that's a little bit about my backstory and where I've come from. Addiction is progressive and it is generational until someone says the buck's going to stop, and the pain gets so great, which happened for me in the year 2000. I reached my real rock bottom, and I'll talk more about that as we go along. So addiction is the greatest social problem on the planet today, and that's by a very well-known authority in the world, Tommy Rosen, on addiction. And what I'd like to just read a couple of things about in my book, Emotional Sobriety. So Dr. Gabor Mate, who's another world authority, I really like learning off these people. And what I like is they're open and honest about their own addictions. So, and in their cleaning up their own addictions, as a lot of times it happens for us, it's our own journey, it's our own desperation that can help be inspiring for others, can help us with our inspiration, and we can find the bless in the mess. And I certainly have done that, and very, very grateful. So back to Dr. Gabor Mate. What is addiction? Addiction is any behavior or thought system, substance related or not, that we continue to do despite the negative consequences in our lives, and we can't stop. And Tommy Rosen, he says, and how many of us, it might not be drinking, it might not be heroin, ice, but it could be food, that we say we're going to not eat more cake, or we say we're going to go on a diet, or we're going to stop this, or we stop controlling, or we're not going to interfere in other people's business, all of those sort of things. And yet when our emotions, we want to go out and get relief from them with our codependent behaviours. So Tommy Rosen also, which I think this is what he says, addiction is the greatest social problem on the planet today, which I've just said up there. It causes damage, heartbreak, and emotional and physical scarring. Absolutely. It breaks up families. Yes, yes, yes. And carries self-destruction in its wake. Addiction is responsible for a large part of crime and consequently our prison population. Addiction underlies several of our most costly medical epidemics, type 2 diabetes and childhood obesity, to name two. Addiction has no respect for age, gender, or race and cuts across every socioeconomic classification. And what I want to also add here is that because I'd grown up in addiction, my husband had too, we got together, we then brought 4 children into the frequency and the environment emotionally of addiction, the same sort of thing. And so for the last 25 years, some of my children have been in deep, deep addiction. As I said, it's progressive and it's generational. It doesn't miss you. So that's culminated for me in having children, prisons, rehabs, psych wards, overdoses, all sorts of bad relationships. They got into relationships like I did because that's what they knew. That's what they were taught. And my husband and I were separating in there. Some of my children were just starting to be teenagers. So, of course, their home life was very unstable. We had a beautiful home. We looked like okay because I had businesses. They were always beautifully dressed and well-fed and things like this. But this underlying frequency of addiction was what was programming them to go out and seek relief. I can totally understand why they started using drugs. There was no stability in the home because their parents were hadn't cleaned up their own addictions. If anybody has any children that are suffering with addictions or substance abuse, I ask you to find some help for yourself and do the work on yourself. My children are starting to come out of addiction now, and I believe some of that has been because I've cleaned up my own. I've acknowledged my own addiction to codependency and done the work on myself. We often want our children to clean up, and we've got to do our part and clean up our own things as well. I do collaborate with Australian Anti-ICE. I help in the family support for parents when they've got children in addiction, which is a tough gig. I promise you it's a tough gig, but I can help support them because I know what it's like. I know what it's like to have to visit your children in prison. I know what it's like to take them to a hospital with an overdose. One of my daughters had open heart surgery as well because she'd used a dirty heroin needle. She was within an hour of her life as well. So please get the help for yourself. And we're in a time now where ignorance is a choice. There's enough knowledge out there. If we're keen and want to do work and want a better, happier life, as I've been able to create, then there's plenty of information out there. So what I'd like to go through now is just quickly go through what they call as the big 7. These are the more prominent ones that we kind of know as addiction. But as I go through the class, we'll also be talking about the lifestyle addictions and the emotional addictions and addictions to our emotions, by the way. So drugs. So most of us are familiar with prescription and illicit drugs. And I'm really, really happy now that people are becoming more aware of prescription medication addiction. It is killing people, and people think because they go to the doctor and get it, and it seems quite a few doctors, not all, but quite a few doctors are very happy to just write out scripts as a quick fix, and it doesn't work. And I've learned of many, many people that have got on a huge spiral down with addiction, ending in ice and heroin and ending in death when they started on painkillers or ADHD medication. That was the start, and then it keeps going. So prescription medication and illicit drugs. Alcohol. Now, I believe alcohol is our largest drug problem in the world. What I mean by this is that it usually affects 1 in every 5 homes, alcoholism. And the reason I think that it's the largest is it's society's pressure release valve. And the thing is, it's legal. We use it for births, we use it for deaths, we use it for celebrations. They use it at sports events. I can't tell you how many times I picked up my husband from a cricket match or a rugby game, and he would be just so drunk. He would have missed the whole game. So I'm hoping in time, just like the tobacco industries, because there's a lot of money with sponsorship from the alcohol companies, and I'm hoping in time that they stop that as well. To me, it doesn't go health, sport, and drugs together. So and yes, so it's legal. There's plenty of bottle shops around. You can easily get it, alcohol. So food, most of us know that obesity is a huge epidemic as well, which I believe most of it is food addiction. We use food to stuff down our emotions, and I'd like to make mention that one of my daughters growing up in our household, of course, she started binging, stuffing her emotions down with food, and then she had anorexia for a good 20 years. So again, all of this stuff is because we can't manage our emotions and the environments that we're in. Environment can be more important than hereditary. So overeating, binging, anorexia comes into food addiction. Anorexia, bulimia, etc. They are all a sense of control. Now, what with my daughter or people that have used food as their addiction is they don't know how to control their emotions, and they can't control what's inside, I beg your pardon. So they try to control what's outside. So it comes down to control as well. People, this is where codependency comes in, the addiction to people, and it can be to substances, all of the above. And codependency is the condition of the lost soul, the lost self. We don't know who we are. Often, if you've been brought up in a home like I was, with dysfunction and addiction that is rife, we split off. We become an adapted self at a young age. And what we do is we adapt to start getting our needs met for a different, like for love. We might act out. Someone in the family, usually people play different roles in family. Someone in the family might become very academic and become ducks of the school and things like this. They're looking for a sense of self because we've split off, because we didn't get the nurturing that we should have got at those ages. This is nothing to blame our parents for, because once we become aware and once we are adults, we can then find the bliss in the mess, and we can have a wonderful journey of healing through growing up and taking responsibility. Once we have awareness, we have responsibility, and it can be a wonderful journey of reconnecting with support. I don't believe it can be done without it. There's no one in the history of addiction that has ever got clean and sober on their own. The reason for this is that addiction is very cunning and very baffling, and it's like you've got a voice on your shoulder justifying and rationalizing why you shouldn't need to do it. And I think most of us have experienced that with, we're not going to eat chocolate cake anymore, or we're not, and then it's like, oh, just one piece won't hurt, and etc. So we can kind of understand that. Money, gambling has become a huge addiction, and people will cross-addict as well. I do know of quite a few people that have gone to AA and stopped the alcohol, but they've cross-addicted and just started gambling. The reason, my opinion, is because they didn't fix the codependency underneath it. Codependency sits underneath all addictions. Addictions are the symptom. Codependency is underneath it. You need to fix the trauma. You need to fix what drove you to use those things to numb or get relief. Shopping is a big addiction as well, and being in debt, accustomed to buying into the lie that it's okay to be in debt. What we would do, instead of addressing our our addictions, both my husband and I, is we'd like, let's get a new home, let's go on a trip, let's do all of these things. And it was all just a band-aid to give us a bit of relief. But then, of course, all the stuff underneath would come up after that. We'd had that quick fix for a short time. There's no silver bullets in healing from codependency. And if people come to me for coaching, I tell them straight up, there's no silver bullets in this. And if there was any, I'll tell you what, I was looking for them everywhere. And they don't last long term. For real sobriety and the freedom from codependency, it takes commitment, and you've got to wanna. Sex has become pornography, using sex as a drug. Again, another way to get a quick fix, another way to just get relief. And technology, I know we're using technology today. However, you know, like we said, there's a lot of information out there now, and there's lots of stuff on YouTube. So I'm very, very fortunate and grateful for that. But again, addiction, the opposite of addiction is connection. So like I talked about, when we split off, when we're children, we disconnect from ourselves. So what we need to do is reconnect to ourselves. So when we're using technology, they call it digital heroin, as a way to disconnect again, then that becomes addictive, and we look for different ways to use it. And it saddens me to see small young children with iPads or things like that, too much of it, because they learn to connect to that and they're not connecting to nature or the family or things like that. So codependency, I believe, is the white elephant in 95% of every living room on the planet. It's not, I don't believe there's enough awareness. As I said to you, I was going around to so many different people to get help, and they couldn't put their thumb on it because I wasn't drunk in the gutter. I wasn't using a needle. And consequently also, when I was at my lowest, I was taken to hospital, and I should have been in rehab as well, but because I wasn't using substances, then they didn't know where to put me. They put me in the psych ward. One of my dreams has been for many years is to create rehabs for codependency. So I believe it's as I said, the white elephant in the room, most rooms on the planet, I'm saying. So like all addictions, codependency takes us to a rock bottom, or a few. I've had a few, and we seem to go through, as we clean up one thing, something else will pop up for us to clean up. If we still use it in that area, codependency affects all areas of our life. That's why in my book, Emotional Sobriety, it's written like it's managing codependent behaviors, codependency in our financial life, codependency in our family life, codependency in our business life. We take it wherever we go. So as I said, codependency takes us to a bottom. And my real worst rock bottom was in the year 2000, which was the final time that I was leaving my marriage. And I knew that I wouldn't be able to keep playing that game and doing it. And I was very, very sick. I was in withdrawal, and I was like a heroin addict. For the 3 weeks before I finally left my husband on that day, January the 15th, the year 2000, when my sister came and saw me and took me to hospital, I couldn't eat or keep water down. My body was shutting down. I believe if my sister hadn't come that day and taken me to hospital, I was very, very sick. I couldn't get out of bed. The next day I would have died, because my organs were all shutting down as well. Couldn't keep water, couldn't keep food down. That's why I'm like, this stuff kills. Codependency kills, just like any other addiction. So so it takes you to some rock bottoms, and of course they don't feel good, but later, of course, that can be your biggest blessing. So by the time we're 35, what I want to do is is point out that the new neuroscience now, neuropsychology, neuropsychiatry, is saying that we can also become addicted to our emotions. By that, what I mean is we can become addicted to anxiety, we can become addicted to depression, we can become addicted to fear. We're living in that frequency of addiction. And none of us, we all know that stress kills, and yet we're all we're a very stressful, addictive society, and we're living in it 24/7. And what that does, the new neuroscience is coming out and saying that when we're living in that stressful state 24/7, no living organism can cope with that. When we're living in the fight or flight, that's for if we have an accident, or if we need that, all that adrenaline most of us have heard the stories of someone perhaps lifting a car off they seem to get all of this power off a child, or being able to be very alert in an accidental situation. That's when we need that stress and that those fight or flight. But the thing is, we're supposed to go back to homeostasis after that. But in general, most of the population, we're living in stress 24/7. And what happens is living in stress like that downloads the frequencies, it sends off, it puts neurochemicals into our body, and they download and they change our genes. So they change our genes. And you might hear of someone saying, well, it was in their genes, it was in their genes. I'm talking about epigenetics as well. You know, they're saying now that most diseases, I don't call codependency a disease, I call it a dis-ease or a condition, because it can be fixed. I'm living proof of that. And most diseases, there's only 6% are genetic, the rest are epigenetic. So when we're living in this fight or flight, or this sense of stress the whole time, our body breaks down and it changes our gene expression. It's scientifically based, evidential based truth, and you can kind of understand it, can't you? Also, like I said, when we become addicted to, when we're in these stressful states where we're always flooding our body with neurotoxins, then our body physically, by the time we're 35 as well, becomes addicted to those neurotoxins. So if we're living in stress our whole time, or we're addicted to stress or fear, or I was addicted to work, I was addicted to busyness, I was addicted to everything. So except substances, of course. So my body was used to that hypervigilant. And then if I didn't have a drama or a chaos in my life, or some anxiety, my body, like all addictions, would start screaming out, because it was used to getting the download of those chemicals. So your body becomes the mind, and your body becomes addicted to those chemicals that we download when we're in those stressful states. People that are in depression all the time, that's downloading all of those, that's a very low frequency, and the body becomes used to that. And if there's nothing to be depressed about, the body starts screaming out and goes, where are those chemicals? And our autonomic nervous system with frequency and vibration goes out and creates something in our outer world to feed that addiction to our body of those chemicals. Codependency is progressive and fatal. I know I say that, and I'll say it over and over again. Stress, we've just talked about stress. Stress is everywhere, and people are all talking about it, and they say, I'm stressed, I'm stressed, I'm stressed. What are people actually doing about it? Autoimmune. So autoimmune comes under, I believe, most of autoimmune is codependency underneath of it. So, and I didn't realize, I have a friend who she healed herself with autoimmune naturally, and is a coach for autoimmune, and I've learned such a lot of her. Her name is Marsha Schultz. She's got a Facebook page, and if you'd like that Facebook page, please connect with me or look her up. I didn't realize it was such a big window, like Alzheimer's, dementia, heart, they all come under autoimmune. And to really drive that point home, I have a friend who's in Cairns, and last year her mother passed with Alzheimer's, and she'd been sick for 3 years. And of course, the stress on the family, it had been horrific for the person and the family, and it's not nice at all. We all know that. And I felt for the poor woman. Anyway, so she did pass, which was kind of a blessing for her as well. And then her daughter, I was talking to her daughter later, and she said, "Oh, Ros, we've realised now that Mum was very, very unhappy, and I think she was 68, was very, very unhappy in the marriage for the last 25 to 30 years. And I said to my friend, bingo. You see, when we're unhappy, we're downloading the genes that create disease. And so don't forget Alzheimer's and things like that all come under autoimmune. MS, Dr. Gabor Mate, the guy that's very prominent in the world, he wrote a book called When the Body Says No. And he talks in there about, he actually reads some eulogies of some people, and then at their funerals that have died of MS, and it would be, oh, they never thought about themselves. They're always doing for everybody else, and they never got angry and things like that. All that codependency. And he talked about one particular lady, Mary, in the book. It's a fantastic book where she'd stayed in a relationship and she wouldn't leave a bad relationship. She created MS and it killed her. Cancer, just like most of us will be familiar with Louise Hay, and she said as well, if we don't go under and find the emotional reason why we got the cancer, we might go and get it cut out, and that's okay, depending on what you want to do. But if we haven't addressed the underlying codependency or emotional issues as to why we got the cancer, the epigenetics, the environmental, the food, all of the things that go with epigenetics, then we've heard the story and it'll just pop up again. There's no way in the world I would be alive today if I didn't do my codependency work. And when I did get taken to the hospital, my sister took me in the air. I was begging to die. I didn't want to live anymore. I couldn't do it anymore. I was no different from, as I said, a heroin addict or an ice addict. So there's no way I'd be alive. And strokes, my mother actually, so my father, they said it didn't have alcoholism on his death certificate. It had cancer. But no, did it say what was the cause of his cirrhosis of the liver or the drinking? And what was underneath that was inability to manage their emotions, both my parents. They were both highly intelligent, very enterprising business people as well. We actually looked in the small town like the family that had it all, but all this other stuff was going on in our house as well. So just coming in for a bit of a landing, some of the symptoms. So have you ever just see if you could be as honest as you can. So have you ever said yes to things when you really want to say no, but we don't have the courage, we don't have the self-worth, or we're saying yes to people because we want to keep them in our lives, or we're scared that they'll leave us? Do you feel responsible for others' behaviours? Now, if you're answering this, or you might know, it might be you, or you might know someone, let me tell you, there's no one. I'm the queen of all this stuff. This was my whole life, running around like a chook with my head cut off, doing all of these behaviours until I came to a real crashing halt in the year 2000. And I was just on the couple of days or a day or so of death. Do you feel it's your job to fix people's things in other people's lives? The reason that we do that is our own emotions, we can't manage them. And if someone else isn't living their life how we think they should, the fear comes up, especially when it's your children. And to settle our own fear down, what we do is we'll pay for our children's car payments. Some parents will give their children on drugs the money for drugs because they fear that they will lose their children. And let me tell you, I know what that's like. I have had 25 years of that, not more than one child as well. So, but what we're doing is our own fears rise up. That's why we need someone to support us, someone to hold our hand through this journey, a safe person that we can go to and get and help share our fears and emotionally appropriately put boundaries into place. Do you find it difficult to ask for what you need and express how you truly feel? I certainly felt this, although on looking back, I didn't even know how. I didn't even feel. I was so busy doing all my codependent. That was to keep me away from feeling, because if the fear would rise up, I'd go and get another business, and people do that when they've got out of a relationship. Like I was a relationship addict, and that's why the fear would come up in me, the pain would rise, and I'd go back to my husband. How many people do you know out there that are either yo-yoing in the same relationship or going from one relationship to another, and the same things just create? So I didn't know how. We're a society that doesn't know how to feel, hence why addiction is the largest social problem on the planet. So busy giving, you have nothing left for yourself. That's what I was doing, all of these things. A fear of not being liked by others, seeking approval and acceptance. And I'd like to mention here that I went outside of my own values to get approval and acceptance, spending money I didn't have, doing things I didn't want to do, all of those things, because I'd be scared of people losing me, or I wanted to be accepted. I didn't want to lose any friends. So all of those things, and I didn't have any internal strength in myself and I couldn't get the right people. I wish I had someone like me 25 years ago. I may not, of course we can't know, and I was obviously meant to go through that, but I couldn't get someone like me to hold my hand. I just couldn't do it. And so I did, lots of good things and lots of wrong things. Stay in situations too long despite the signs telling you it's time to get out. I stayed in my marriage 24 years, and really I even knew before I got married. I didn't have the infrastructure in place, the support, the awareness to help me do that at the time. And this can be in businesses, this can be staying at a job that causes us stress. If you're starting to feel squirming on a Sunday afternoon, I don't really want to go to that job, but I'm too scared to leave. Now, I'm not saying leave your job. I'm saying get some support to help your fears, and then start to look at how you could put things in place, baby step at a time. Share inappropriately with the wrong people because you think they know better. I was always going to other people, especially if they had degrees and things like that, and I would ask them their advice. And I'm looking back, I now look and see I was so desperate that I would ask that, and then they'd tell me what they thought I should do, and then I'd end up in bed for another week and feel guilty, and now they think I'm stupid. And I look back and I think their lives probably weren't any better than mine. They were just hiding it differently with under degrees or academia or things like that. So be very careful. Again, the importance of having a safe person, a coach or a counsellor that understands that is a specialist in codependency. And in saying that, someone that has done the journey that you're doing. No, I will not go near. I have coaches and mentors in my life for different things. I love having coaches, and I always want to keep evolving. I think that's what we're here for, and become a better expression of myself. So I need coaches as well to call me on my BS, to stretch, to support me and challenge me. So that's why we need coaches, and I would strongly recommend, if you do that, number one, you don't go and tell everybody what you're doing, and number two is that it's a person that doesn't know your family or friends. Our friends have, in my case, they'd had enough of my story. I'd go on, I was addicted to telling the story as well. So get someone that's and just keep it as your own special thing. Let the people see the difference in you. I highly recommend when people come on coaching with me, don't tell anyone, let them see it. Let them see the changes. A new way of living is possible. So I'd like to share, here's what I know. Recovery is possible, however, it takes more than wishing for it. It sure does, but it can be done. I love my life. I have a great life. I've never felt freer and better in my life, and that's not because everything. I've got lots of challenges in my life, but I've built emotional sobriety. I've got my scaffolding in place to deal with things. And I really have a really good, fulfilling life, a joyful life. The most meaningful, sustainable growth comes when a person has nothing left and they surrender. That's what happened to me at the hospital. I was actually wanting to die. I was begging the doctors to let me die. I couldn't do it anymore. So even though I'd done quite a bit of codependency work before that, for 10 years or so, but I believe it's because I didn't have the counsel I needed beside me. Or maybe I wasn't ready. I don't quite know. But I wish I'd have had someone like me then. You've got to want to change. You really do want to. You've got to really want a different life. My experience shows this happen when the pain is so great that you have to change. It's the best place to be in, although it won't feel like it at the time. When the pain gets so great, you just can't do it anymore. And like I said, I'd leave my husband, go back. You know, it wasn't painful enough until that last time, just like any addict. I know what's on the other side. I really do. That's why I love what I do, and I love watching the growth, and I love watching people start to bloom and start to get self-worth and stop people from abusing them or stop positioning themselves in places where they get disrespected. I just love it. It's a way of living. It's not a quick fix. So I'd like to share about a woman I had been working with for 3.5 years. After leaving her second marriage, she had no money, no job, no car, no house. She actually slept on a couch for 6 months in a house that someone took her in. She also had a primary school age child at the time. So she'd left her second marriage. And now I want to point out here, it's a very important point, is this girl is a Mensa. Now, if you're not sure what a Mensa is, it's the top 2% of intellects on the planet. So she's got heaps of degrees under her belt. You cannot intellectualize yourself through an emotional problem. Precisely why you need a person specialized in this. This is an emotional problem. So that was where she was at 3.5 years ago. Today, she puts herself and her emotional sobriety as her number one in her life. My emotional sobriety is my biggest, highest value. If I go to look at something, or will I do it? Will I go there? Would I go to this situation? I think, will it emotionally enhance me, or not just enhance me? Can I emotionally handle it? And if it's not safe for me to go, I don't go. I am not prepared to have done all this work and position myself in emotional things that take me down or don't make me feel good. And again, it's our responsibility. It's our choice to go. She has learned how to have fun and joy in her life. She has. Just like I was at a very low ebb, and now I have a lot of fun and joy in my life. She has slowed down. She is present in her life, so she's much more connected. Remember, I said the opposite of addiction is connection. So what we've got to do is we've got to disconnect from all our codependency addiction things as we do the journey with support, and then reconnect with ourselves. Then as we reconnect back out with things along the way, we do it in a healthier way, because we've got a better sense of self, and we don't put ourselves in abusive situations, disrespectful situations. We're able to have the self-worth to walk away from them, so we don't and so we go from codependency, which is very, very sick and fatal. Then kind of we go back, we start to connect to ourselves, which is dependency on ourselves, and we build the muscle, we connect with ourselves. Then we go to interdependency, which is a healthy way of interacting. So dependency isn't healthy either, but sometimes there's a space where we need to create the space to just work on ourselves. She is far more emotionally present for her son, and by demonstration, she is giving him a new way of living. That kid knows more about personal responsibility, self-care, and boundaries at 14 than most people I know at 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. actually 80. Now, what I want to bring back to, I say, addiction is progressive and generational. So is recovery. And as I said, I believe that me starting to clean up, taking the focus. I didn't see my children for a lot of years because of their lifestyle, and I couldn't help them out there. What I had to do was bring it back in, get support, and help myself, and then you can start. It ripples out the other way. She's still doing the work. However, life is very different for her now. She's done it step by step. Remember, no silver bullets. And I'd done hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of personal development. I'd go to a personal development. It would give me a quick fix, $5,000 for a weekend. What I was doing was avoiding having to leave my marriage. I was addicted to my drug of my husband. And the family breaking down, and my addiction to the fantasy that I wanted, the white picket fence, and I didn't want a broken family. I was addicted to that, and I was prepared to just about die to bring that about. So she's done it step by step. She's been very committed. You've got to be committed to this work. And now she has built a 100K year business from nothing and published her own book. She has surrendered at all stages and taken action, even though she was on the floor many times, precisely why you need support. It can't be done alone. So if you're thinking that some of this stuff relates to you, the first thing where could I start? The first thing is to slow down. Remember, I said I was addicted to busyness. I was addicted to work addiction. I was frantic, and I was addicted to the feelings. My body was addicted to the feelings of anxiety. I lived on anxiety. I lived on drama. I wouldn't have been known how to live without it. So slow down. Again, we're addicted to being busy, so even slowing down is a hard thing to do. Build yourself a scaffolding. To have a high building, we put scaffolding around it in case we fall. So that's why I say get your scaffolding of support around you. And this could be a codependency coach or specialist. Remember, someone that's done and living the life, walking the talk, not someone that can just talk the talk. Safe people who've done the CODA work, a group, there's 12-step groups out there. Remember, I started off at Al-Anon, there's Codependent Anonymous, there's a lot of groups out there that you can go to. So if money's a problem, don't make that your excuse, because you can go to a group for nothing. Daily practices. Also build yourself an emotional intensive care unit. What we're doing, and now it's been proven by the neuropsychology and psychiatry, is we're going for connection. We're living in our heads in the anxiety and addiction, and we want to connect to our heart. And so we're changing all the neural programs in our mind from when we were brought up, etc., from our conditioning. We're turning those around. So you're actually having brain and heart surgery. So I say, when you're at your lower times, create a blueprint for your own emotional intensive care unit. Make your own one at home. I've used this many, many times myself. I've still got it. I have a list of things if something knocks me. And let's face it, none of us know what we might have to face in life, this afternoon, tomorrow. But we want to set up a system that we can go to and save people. So you could cocoon, you could surrender, ring a safe person or a coach for support. And there's a wonderful healing Hawaiian prayer healing technique called the Ho'oponopono. That's on YouTube. If you'd like more information about that, please reach out to me. And tapping. Most of us know, and there's plenty on YouTube, emotional freedom tapping. That all of these things that we could do if we're really, really uptight, don't know what to do, instead of going out and using our old codependent addictive behaviors and causing more problems, spiraling down, more deluge out there, learn to get your coach, or your support, and sit with it. Learn to feel. We have to feel to heal with support. Meditation and yoga. So as I said, we're in a state, we're in a time now where ignorance is a choice. There's so much support out there. Stay in your own paddock, especially when you're first starting to do this work. It's like I say, stay in your own paddock and Don't even put your head over the fence. What we want to do is codependent. We want to control and run everybody else's lives. We want to control out there because we're so out of control inside, and it gives us relief to control or fix, or we know we're good at knowing what everybody else should be doing. So I go, get back in your own paddock. You've got enough work to do there. And also, if you have people with addictions or you have problems in your life, it might be problems with parents, it might be problems with children, it might be problems with family members, it might be problems at work. Get back in your own problem, pull it back and do the work on yourself, then step out with support from a balanced mind. And if I get a bit wobbly or something, well, first of all, I'll put myself into emotional intensive care unit. That might be have a bath, it might be go to the movies, it might be go to bed and cry, it might be whatever I need to do, and I'm more than happy to do that. I wouldn't stop. I didn't have a stop button. Now I stop. I stop first, realign myself before I start approaching the situation. And I say to my people, don't even put your head over the fence. We've got enough work. If we do the work on ourselves, it ripples out. I promise you that. And it creates different things. So things to look for are where you're overcommitted. So look, especially at the start of this work, it doesn't have to be forever, but where you're overcommitted, create the space to respect this work and respect yourself enough to do this work and have the space to do it in. I promise you, you won't be sorry. Give it the respect it deserves. We've got to start to, as I said, we're a society that doesn't know how to feel a lot, and a lot of the time that's why we're looking for things in all the wrong places. So start to just in your languaging, not instead of I think. Our thinking got us into a lot of our states. How do I feel? I feel this. Start to just connecting in with your feelings. Do you know the heart is 5,000 times more powerful than our brain, and it knows the truth of us, but most of us have been living in our addictive heads. We don't even hardly know. Well, I wouldn't have known where my heart was. So what does emotional sobriety look like? So for me, this is my experience. I feel in control of my life. Notice I said my life, not anybody else's. And I'm not interested in controlling anybody else. I've got enough to do on my own. And it's so freeing. I'm number one in my life, and I'm very happy to say that. I'm number one. Therefore, you know what? I mean, I would have called myself like a giving, a kind person, but I overgave. I gave for the wrong reasons. I was doing to get acceptance and to be liked and all of those things. Now that I'm number one in my life, I give in a healthier way, and I'm a much more honest giver. That wasn't honest giving. That was so I could get something back, how I used to do it. Now I'm honest, and I actually give far more deeply and far more authentically and far more honestly in a much healthier way. I actually give more now than I ever did when I was in my addiction of codependency. I make decisions for myself and the highest good for me. I've said that. I now have safe personal and physical scaffolding in place to support and challenge me. I take time out when I need it. I have no problem doing that. I have a stop button. Oops. And I recenter myself before going forward. I have a regime for when I get knocked down, my emotional intensive care unit or wobbly. Sorry. Oops, I don't know. Take that out. Sorry, I don't know. I don't quite know how to. Oops, I don't quite know. Oh, there we go. I now know how to laugh, have fun, enjoy in my life. I have a fabulous life. I love my life. As I said, does that mean I don't have challenges? Of course I do. But I now have a much better way of dealing with it. And I'm much, much healthier. I have reclaimed the pieces of myself that I'd lost. I'd even say not only just the pieces that I'd lost or split off from or become an adapted self, but way more. This journey, it gives you way more than you'd ever believe. I'm living a new normal. I sure am. And when I think about how I used to live, I'd rather be dead than living like that. It wasn't living. I was just a ball of addiction. So just to finalise here, I'm running a 6-week online program. I've just finished one and it went really, really well. I cap it at 5 people max so people can feel safe. It's $350 invoiced up front with weekly payments, and it's 1 hour each week for 6 weeks via Zoom. It's gone really, really well, and I've had good feedback from that. So I'm just setting a date for my next one as well. So you would receive a copy of my Emotional Freedom book, and also there's a workbook to go with the course. So I'm really passionate about running more of these courses because, you know, I think it's good also to have a group setting as well. People learn off each other, and you don't have to share if you don't feel safe enough. You won't be put in positions where you don't feel safe. And where to go if you'd like more information. So as I said, I have my book. Contact me or go to my website to buy that, and you can get it off Amazon. The weekly group coaching, I do one-on-one coaching that can be via Zoom. I coach around Australia and New Zealand. I have a Facebook page, Roslyn Saunders Relationship and Love Addiction. So there's a ton of information on there. I do have a YouTube channel, which I'm getting better at uploading more to that, and I have a website. So please feel free to go. There's a ton of free resources. And this book is actually like a workbook. It's not, it's relatable. I give you scripts on how to deal with different situations. It's got really good information in this book. So thank you for that. Now I'm going to stop the share. I'm back now. Thank you, Caroline. Thank you for being with me the whole time. I hope you found that interesting.
I did. I think the thing that I find the most interesting is probably I'm at the end of the journey. So even though it was very interesting recapping all what you had to say,
yes,
I think that the biggest challenge that I've had in my journey is I don't do the group thing. I'm not a group person, but
yes.
I have, like you said, spent a lot of money on all sorts of things.
We do.
No, I've found that the hardest challenge has been finding anybody that's actually an expert. That, like, I can get them on, like, they're in America and they're
yes.
now talking and all of that. I get that. And I've read some of the best books on it and all that. But getting somebody that's a coach is very difficult.
It is.
Outside of your peer group. And I get totally what you're saying is that no one wants to hear about it. And even if they do want to hear about it, they actually don't know how to handle it.
Precisely, Carolyn. They don't really know what they're dealing with unless they've got sober and clean. That's why, you know, in the 12-step groups, one alcoholic can get another alcoholic clean and sober.
Yeah. And
so
mine's related, so mine's more on an emotional level.
Yeah. Well, you may, as you said, you're at the end of it, so you're probably quite well. But you know, my book may be good, or you know, I'm happy to have a chat if you ever need any help. And I agree with you. There's not enough people that really get this. Sorry?
I'm probably more interested in the coaching.
Yes, yeah. Well, Carolyn, I'm so passionate. I love this because I see the changes in, you know, that girl I was coaching. I've got many people I'm coaching, and I love seeing them I just love it. They become a different person, and I don't let them codepend on me either.
Yes, of course.
You know what I mean? I want to empower them so they can, and I love watching their faces change. I love, you know, they lighten up, they brighten up. I just love it. So, so if that's of any interest, you know, please, and I do a 20-minute discovery just to see where you're at, or, you know, it's not a silver bullet, as I've said. There's no quick fixes, and if people aren't right for me, it won't work either. And I'm quite firm with the coaching, but I know it works. I want them to get results, and I want them to get results starting straight away.
So I will be in touch, but just give me a bit of leeway. I'm moving house in 4 days, so
great. Okay, that's exciting then.
Yeah, so I've just got a bit on my plate, and I want to be really focused when I go.
Of course, one thing at a time. I love it. Yeah, please feel free to connect, Carolyn. I'd love that, and I love doing the coaching, and I love watching the change, how people change, and how they stop allowing things to affect them like they did.
Yeah, and I'm a very big fan of moving forward, and that I'm not saying there's anything against group situations, but I just find coaching makes me move forward quicker.
Well, you've got the one-on-one, you're responsible, and you know, and people can hold you to it. You're working together. I love working one-on-one. I just thought, you know, I do that, and that's really where, for people that are as codependent as I was, like, is so sick, and I know that's not you now, but I need.
I like that. In my category, I'm probably, you know, rating up there in the high, and I know it. So yeah, that's the thing, is that I've got to address it.
You do, because it'll get you one way or another. So I'd love to have a chat, Carolyn. Have a and you know, hope the shifting goes well. And
thank you
let's
so much.
Connect. Okay.
And thank you again for your time.
Thank you for coming on the live with me. Appreciate being here.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
bye. Thanks everyone. Bye.